And I suppose obviously getting onto 2007, then obviously just the third time that the Sligo won the Connacht Football Championship at senior level. But I suppose kind of going back to the start of that, like just before the start of the Connacht Championship, like was the feeling going into that year always that you could maybe cause an upset? Because even in 2006, 2005, like obviously, Galway and Leitrim beat Sligo in the opening game of the Connacht Championship. So like, do you think in 2007 you nearly surprised yourself in many ways, or did you always kind of feel confident that maybe you could actually cause an upset going in there?
Yeah, I think, again, kind of going back to, the narrow miss of 2002, which we could have ended up in All-Ireland semi-final playing Dublin, and we're very, very close to it. Then in 3, we kind of fell back a little bit. We lost to Meona in a Connacht Championship game in Markovich, and we lost to Donegal in a qualifier game in Ballybuffet. And again, narrow losses. So 2004, very close to a National League semi-final, lost out by a scoring point, I'll always remember. We would have played Tyrone in that semi-final. So we knew there was a nucleus of very good players, and we were trying to keep them all together really around that period. 2005, Dom Corrigan came in, and we got the last 12 of the All-Ireland with Dom that year as well. But 2006 came, and so it was Dom and the county board. It was, at that time, he parted ways. And my own brother Tommy, which was a former Sligo captain himself, took over the reins in a, just a small capacity. Really, he kind of felt he just come in for a few weeks and just to look after things until they got a more permanent man in place. But as Tommy got into it, he found his feet at that level very, very quickly. He'd managed to kind of our own club team, and he was a selector with us kind of 2 years previously to that as well. So just the year before. But he found his feet, as I said. He knew all the players, in fairness, growing up from a club scene, and knew my own age group as well from managing me at club level. And he just had a good handle on all the players, and his man management style was very, very good, in fairness, and he got players on board straight away. But the key really was that there was 2 players that he identified at the time. Was Kieran Quinn was a fantastic midfielder really back in the early noughties for us. Had given a break for a couple of years and got him back on board. And Michael McNamara then was a big plus. He was a Sligo Rovers captain from the previous year, and played with the Rovers for a few years there. And once you got those 2 on board, even the whole squad kind of stood up and said, right, great, we've 2 key members back. We've a very strong squad at the moment. And in fairness, just things rolled from there. Tommy got John Kent then, and his own club mate, involved. John was a super player with Sligo over the years himself, and he was great to get involved in it. PJ Langton then was a former player, a very good club player with Eastern Harps, and so things started rolling from there, as I said, Aaron, and it was great. Just momentum started building. We knew we were heading to New York that year in 2007. That probably always gives fellas a step, or a pep in the step as well. And fellas might be thinking of taking a year out. Said, right, it's great. We've that trip to New York to look forward to. We had it in 2002, and it kind of gave us the impetus to go on for the Connacht final that year. So 7 again. New York was a fantastic trip, and when you get away on those trips, it's a real bonding time for players. You don't have the same time really when you're kind of week to week. Training, rushing to train and rushing away from training. So I think the New York trip really galvanized the squad back then and gave us that camaraderie that we needed probably leading into the Roscommon game in the semi-final. So that Roscommon game was, we were 5 down with 20 minutes to go. Wasn't looking good at all. And I think we hit something like 8 or 9 points on the bounce then, and won it by a point only in the end. Actually, they clawed it back 1 or 2 points as well. So it was, and that led us into the Connacht final and against Galway.
And what do you think it was then that kind of got you over the line in that game versus Galway? Because always Galway, they had a couple of All-Ireland winners in their team, at the time, and they were certainly the favourites going into that game. So, like, what do you think it was? What do you think was the deciding factor maybe in that game that kind of led you to get that win over Galway?
Yeah, I think probably just going back even to Tommy's mantra that year, he kind of came in on the basis, and he continued from the year before. Like we did quite well in the qualifiers with him the year before. We bet Leitrim and we bet Down, and we were very narrowly defeated by Westmeath by a last second goal by Gary Dolan, I'll always remember. But I think when Tommy set a stall out then for the start of 2007 campaign, we're getting a few extra players. He wasn't going to be around. He felt, and he did say it, that this is it. I'll be here for a year, lads. We need to win it this year. You know, we have a strong squad. This is our time. This is our chance. There was a lot of mental scars as well when you think about the players in that squad. Would have all narrowly lost minor, under 21, and even senior titles. You know, we were almost over the line in a lot of games, and so he had to factor in all that as well. But I think the belief was there when, you know, we got a little bit of momentum. At the very end of the league, we ended up beating Antrim at home and beating Wicklow away. And Wicklow were a sticky team. Mick O'Dwyer was looking after him at the time, and we got a win down in Aughrim, and that again just snowballed things into the New York trip and the Roscommon, and we could just feel it. We could kind of sense it in the training as the year was going on. As I said, the panel was superb, really. Looking back on the players that were on the bench and that Connacht final day, I think it gave us huge belief as well that we were going to do something that year. And you know, we felt Galway was they had a lot of All-Ireland winners, but they might have been coming to their end of their cycle in some ways, and we just needed to capitalise on that and just take them and go for it. I think we all felt that we had, we'd lost a lot of finals. What was another final if this goes wrong? So we kind of just took the shackles off and went for it. And probably on the day we were by far the better team. Really, we missed a lot of chances in the second half. But again, those mental scars were probably kicking in a little bit near the end of the game, where we missed a few frees, we missed a few chances, and we nearly let them back into it. But thankfully, we got over the line. We got a late score, and so the rest is history. And it was a fantastic moment, really, for Sligo J history at the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, even for myself, looking back on that, that's kind of, it's definitely a rarity. You don't really see those things, sadly, anymore, which is a shame in the GA.
Yeah.
And I suppose, obviously, you kind of touched on 2002 there as well. Like, do you think that was kind of, maybe that was kind of the difference then for yourselves as well, was obviously the confidence it gave you, kind of getting that win over Tyrone, and obviously Armagh, like, you know, they went on to win the All-Ireland, and that was a draw in the first game, so there certainly wasn't there wasn't much between you in that either.
Yeah, I think it did. I think, again, the exposure from the qualifiers. Without the qualifiers, I mean, Sligo were still going to be, you know, possibly the also rans of Connacht football, that you'd be getting close. You might get to a Connacht final, but just that exposure, I think, certainly just gave a huge belief within the county. I know myself, growing up and you know, passionate Sligo fan because my brother was involved, but you couldn't even buy a jersey in town at the time. Like in the mid to late 90s, there was no jerseys around the place. But as soon as the qualifiers kicked off, kind of we had to change our jersey. We were a white jersey traditionally, and we had to change the jersey at the time to a black one against Kildare. And all of a sudden, then sports shops were getting them in, and there was a great buzz around this new jersey, and it looked really well at the time. And yeah, so just, you could just sense something was happening, was beginning to happen in Sligo football. And when you saw even kids going around the streets with jerseys, and you know, that was just, you know, that just lifted players as well. So yeah, no doubt about it. That run against to beat Tyrone and Croke Park, I think they were the league champions at the time, was huge. And then moving that on then to being very narrowly defeated then by Armagh, the replay. And we probably would have with a goal chance at the very end of the first game. Darren McGarty, everyone is still in mixed minds in Sligo whether he should have went for that goal, or was it a safer option to punch the ball over the bar if it got blocked from a narrow angle coming in. You know, people were saying to fist that ball over the bar. He could have went for the goal. He probably wasn't a goal getter as such. He got some fantastic points against Tyrone and Armagh himself, but Darragh would probably feel himself that he was more of a point getter than a goal getter.